What's up, Neil?
Hey, Carl.
Here we go.
Coming to you from the heart of the Pacific, brought to you by Paulie by Design.
Respected at all times.
Broadcasting from San Francisco, California, the city by the bay.
It's about to go down.
We shine on positive Pacific Islander role model every Sunday.
Party on a Sunday.
From 10 a.m. to noon, it's time for the iconic Faika podcast with your hosts,
Listening to
Naki and Carb.
Long time no see, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you. It's not Naki, it's Neil.
Right. Welcome, Neil Veavea. We will talk about that in a minute. Naki's not with us today. She's resting up at home. We'd kind of look forward to seeing our guests in person today, but in the spirit of being safe and practicing what we preach, we're socially distanced and doing the show virtually. We are chasing one guest right now with the founder of Brown Girl Woke, Doris Tulifau. And we will talk with her when she gets in. We have the founder of Utopia, Neil Veavea, coming in from the, I think it's sunny city. It looks like it's sunny.
It's
Neil's
really
picture.
sunny. Yeah.
Getting a lot of rain in Northern California lately, but from sunny San Francisco, we have Neil Veavea, Tayao Manuia. Neil.
Tayao Manuia. It's good to be here. It's been a minute and some things have changed, but I kind of like it. You know, technology. When I first signed on, I was like, oh, shoot. Do I have to press any new buttons?
Yeah, the technology may change, but it's driven by what we're going to say, how we say it, and the spirit in what we say. So we're going to do, what does our show look like today with no Naki? I think she's probably joining us online. We're going to do our check-ins, and then we have several topics that we're going to go through. So Neo knows the routine. He was a host of the Faika podcast for years and in two different locations. He was with us in FCC Free Radio in downtown San Francisco, just off of Mission and Market. And then he was with us in our second studio as well. So you know the routine, Neil. How was your week?
Yeah, wow. I miss those days. As a matter of fact, I still reminisce about the early smells of going down to, was it 7th Street? 7th
Yeah,
Street.
that South of Market area is does have a distinct, I don't know. There's a flavor to it.
It was a character building opportunity. Is what you see on air is not what you see getting there. It was very interesting, avoiding all the needles and the break-ins and
yeah,
but this is great too. You know, less personal feeling, but you know, we can still see each other. My week since retiring from a community and from everything else is actually pretty good. I've been teaching myself to try to wake up like at 9 or 10, but that really doesn't happen. It's usually I'm up at 5 in the morning. I think old people do that when they retire. They just kind of get up at 5 and make coffee. But it's interesting. I still do Hot Siva for Felton Services, which is an organization in San Francisco that deals with a lot of senior programming, which is kind of funny. When they asked me to come on board, they already had a ukulele sort of workshop, which they call it the Visitation Valley Ukulele Group. And that was something that I did back in the day with Viz Valley. So we kind of fit really well with Felton. They do a lot of services for, like I said, the elder community, and they deal a lot within the Asian community, which is something I think as a Pacific Islander that we need to kind of break out of our little Pacific Islander circle and try to reach out to different groups. So I work with them, and I also do a lot of my baking, and I've honed my skills on bread baking. So yeah, it's kind of dangerous because you can eat 2 loaves a day of fresh bread. I mean, that stuff is crazy. So I'm trying to figure out ways to make it healthier. There is no healthy way. You just gonna go in. You know, I mean, I've made jalapeno breads, cheese breads. I've done cinnamon rolls, you know, but a lot of things I won't post because I don't want people to be Oh, okay. So bring it over if you're gonna post all that food. But I have I've blessed some of my friends and some people with fresh bread because
I
you
remember
can't.
we were all on our keto kick
Yeah,
when back in the cafe wellness days, and you would make this carb free bread. And I remember thinking, because it's keto time, right? So you can eat as
right.
long as there's no carbs, you're within those keto guidelines. And oh my gosh, I could eat a loaf of that. You would give like a loaf to me and Naki, and I would be like, I could eat the whole thing, heat it up, put butter on it, and I can just eat
Yeah,
the
there you
entire
go.
thing.
Well,
Neil
you
was
know what I
able to
know?
make keto bread good.
It's and I want to get back on keto, but I don't know. I think there's a good balance. You can do keto 1 week, 2 weeks. You don't necessarily have to throw all your eggs in one basket. So I don't. I mean, I do make keto every once in a while when I wake up in the morning feeling like, okay, I'm going to feel a keto today. And I'll make, just a small little loaf and have some eggs, try to get healthy. But more often than less, it's always the fresh bread. God forbid I learn how to make baguettes and French bread. It's just going to be over. And, but just the smell of the house having fresh bread. Oh my goodness,
Mm.
that's it's dangerous with some. If you're a hot chocolate person, I'm a coffee person, so or tea. But that's how I spend my weeks. I kind of wake up thinking what trouble I can get into. I miss community a lot. I miss it because there's no contact with people, right? And this is fine for every once in a while, but I really figured it out when the pandemic first started and I went into that deep depression because I had no contact with people, that I'm better off just not committing to a lot of things because I can't go. And it really hurts me that I can't go. But this is a good alternative. So I try to do things like I also retired from the mayor's disability council because I felt there wasn't anything I could really do to help, people of color and disabled people if I can't be out there, right? So a lot of that has changed the way think. It's all about just hanging out at home, maybe become like a Leah Poasa and try to refurbish things. I don't know. That's never going to happen either because I can't even do mechanic things, but cooking, baking, those kind of things I can do. And I think that's where I'm throwing my little passion into. And hopefully once this virus, or I don't know, we got now a new virus here, ends. Do you personally see an end to any of this, Carl? I mean, just quickly.
Um, yeah, I'm concerned with. I do think so. I think that we're probably going to peak here in the next week or so with Omicron. But as the numbers creep up and more people get vaccinated and more people have had it, and it just has to get back to normal at some point. And actually, one of the things that kind of comforts me is the power of the dollar, right?
Yeah.
So, big corporations and all those, at some point, the rich people got to make their money. So they got to find a way to open things back up, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like somehow capitalism is going to drive things to the point that we're going to be able to open up and get back to the way that we live. But it's kind of scary. We're looking at next month is month 2 of this thing. I mean, is the beginning of year 2.
Is it
Um,
2 years? I thought it was going
2
on
years.
3.
2 years. February 2020 was when it kind of started off. But yeah, to your point, that it feels like it's been 10 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Like doesn't feels a
Yeah.
lot more than like 2. But yeah, just we were talking in the pre-show about Hawaii and we traveled to Samoa together in 2019. Like those are the things that those feed my soul. I can't wait to get back on the road, and this isn't just a thing, right? Like I can't wait to go travel with you, Neil. Like the time we had together out in the Pacific is those
It was
are those are
amazing.
memories. We need to go make more of those. So
I
I
was
think we
hoping
will
Doris
open up.
would be on to let us, to give us a sense of the direction where Samoa is going to be. Because if anything, I would love to just go directly into Samoa and just hang out. But
Yeah.
when I'm hearing of both Samoas, they've kind of pretty much locked down, and it'd be, I mean, if she could make it out, and Doris, she'll find a way to make it out, and I'm pretty sure with what she knows, and she's been there a while, if their borders are going to ever open up. I mean, I need that Pacific Ocean, I need that weather, I need that food, I need, and it's so funny because a lot of people will say to me, but you were born and raised in the States. Like, when I was really young, Samoa was the furthest thing from my mind. It was like, why would I want to go there? But I find that as I get older, it's more or less calling to me. It's like, dude, you need to show up. I mean, I still have property there, and I was going to hit up somebody saying, hey, listen, find somebody who wants to lease it. I don't know if I'm ever coming back. I need to do something with this land. So if anybody out there who wants a piece of property in Kafunga, which is right near the McDonald's, listen, let's talk lease, 10 years. I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
right out the airport. Right off the airport.
Yeah, right at the airport. And
right by
you've
the
been there.
McDonald's.
Yeah, and Naki's been there, and Leah, and it's I've heard that people are leasing property just to do little organic farming things, with taro, and yeah, you want to do it, we're not talking millions a month, let's help you, help me, help you.
One of those things that I always figured in my lifetime, I knew at some point I was going to go to American Samoa. I just knew that I'd end up there. And then when I finally ended up there, we went to Samoa. We went to the independent nation of Samoa. And I never saw that. I never had that in my mind that, I knew eventually I was going to go to American Samoa somehow, some way, but I never even considered Upolu. And when, we made our plans to go, and there was the thought, I just remember somebody said, well, as long as we're there, maybe we should just go to Samoa. And it wasn't even a hesitation. It was like, dang, that's like icing on the cake. I never thought
there you go.
that.
I mean,
right.
$100, we were there.
On a small plane.
Oh, yeah. Never again. I still look at footage of that. I have it. And I cringe at how small that plane was, and how y'all were all in the front. And here I am holding back the tail end of the plane. I'm like, yeah, we know who the heaviest is.
They sent Neo to the back of the plane.
The back of the plane with all the luggage. But I would never give up that experience again. Just watching, filming us landing in Samoa was just breathtaking. Just to go by the coconut trees, you could see the ocean. And then you guys took off and left me and poor Leah stranded there. That was funny when you guys all got in and were able to go to the Airbnb. And we were waiting for Leah's family, who was dropping off their car for Leah to use.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. When we pulled out of the airport, it was left-hand drive, and it took probably a good 2 days there before making turns. I felt okay when we were driving down a straight stretch, but there was a couple times we made turns, and your just instinctual thing is to go to the right-hand side, and that got us in a little trouble sometimes. But what an adventure. And I think that when things open back up, I know when things open back up, we're going to head back out. Anything else going on in your week?
That's about it. I was looking forward to of course, coming on the show and hanging out with you and Naki and Miss Doris. But as Faith would have it, either technology and she's trying to get on, or but I'm praying for you, Sister Nak. Got to get better.
Yeah.
We need your truck driver mouth to be back on Faika.
Naki and I were talking about that pre-show. I think we were talking about. I had sent her a video of her and I in the car talking about, I think, Thor, the movie Thor. That's how old the video was. And wow, we did speak a little different back then.
Yeah, there have been some episodes where I've seen you two lose it.
Yeah,
we won't mention the event we were going to, but I think it had to do with an exercising event. And
Yeah,
yeah,
that was complete loss of control. But
yeah,
good times, good times. My week has been let's see. So I got summoned to jury duty 2 weeks ago,
yes, I've been following
and
you.
I was like, I do not want to be on this jury. And Naki made the prediction. She goes, when you go through jury selection, you're going to end up getting picked. And I was like, no, I'm not. And I did. So Naki was right on that point. And then last week, we went over it again, and she said, you're going to be the jury foreman. And I said, no, I'm not. And Naki was right again. So I ended up being the jury foreman this week for a $3 million dog bite, a pit bull case,
Oh wow,
where um, a a mother and daughter had come from the Fresno area to Sacramento and stayed at a what we would say an auntie and uncle's house. So a very very close friend of the family, the mother and the mother of the daughter and the homeowner were have been friends their entire life. So the two ladies have been friends. Their kids are friends. Definitely like what we would think of as a an auntie situation. They stay there. In the morning. They get up, and the mother and daughter are going to go see other family in Sacramento. And at one point, the daughter asks the auntie, "Can I go outside and play with?" And get this: the pit bull's name is Munch. That's not a good name for a dog. Just if you're wondering and you got a pit bull and you want to name your dog, I don't think Munch is the best
yeah,
name that you could come up with. So the daughter is 9 years old, just turned 9, and says, "Can I go outside and play with Munch?" And the auntie says, "Yes." Opens the door, lets her out. Um, she goes out there and gets attacked. Gets bit by the jaw and the neck. Um,
wow,
and drug across the yard. And the mom runs out, tackles the pit bull, puts the pit bull in a headlock, fights for her daughter's life, really. And eventually, I think she did battle with the dog, and then some other adults came out, and they ended up getting the dog away from the girl.
wow,
Um, so the court case really came down to negligence. So was the auntie and homeowner negligent when she opened the door? And that brought up the discussion of whose dog was it. So the dog was owned by a tenant of the house. They had rented a room out to a guy who's a lifelong friend of the husband. So they'd rented the room out. The guy paid double rent so that he could have a dog there. So he was paying, I don't know, whatever he was paying, and it was doubled because he had a dog.
right,
And there was a discussion of, well, who owns the dog? Does the guy own the dog because he does, the licensing, the vet bill, the food, and everything? But you know how dogs are
right,
when the quote owner is gone. The Everybody else takes care of the dog. They feed the dog, they walk the dog, they play with the dog. So it's kind of like, is it a one ownership kind of thing, or is it a situation where there's joint ownership, like a husband and wife both own a car? um, does the dog belong to the house, or does the dog belong to the guy? So that's what we discussed. It was really interesting. So there were some funny parts in the movie. Have you seen A Few Good Men? Uh, the Tom Cruise, you can't
that was
handle the
years.
truth. What's that?
So it was a few years ago, that movie.
Yeah, A Few Good Men was the court case where Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson get into it in the courtroom, and he's like, "I want the
Yes, yes,
truth," and he's like, "You can't handle the truth." Um, so at one point, the defense or the plaintiff's attorney is has the husband on the stand, and he yells out in the courtroom, "It's like, you overruled the owner and said that the dog had to be put down." So when animal control came to the house, the quote owner wasn't sure he wanted to put the dog down. Well, the husband of the lady that opened the door was like, no, that dog needs to be put down. So he kind of overruled the actual owner, that the dog needed to put down. So the attorney actually gets to the point where he says, "Did you order the code red?" And for those of you that are fans of the movie A Few Good Men, that's a line out of a movie. And I
Right.
literally laughed out loud in court. I was like, I can't believe that he said that.
You use that line.
Yeah, he actually used "Did you order the code red" in an actual court. Sure, he won a bet with his buddies, or there got to be some story to that. I asked
Right.
the attorney after the trial, where'd that come from? And he just laughed and said, I don't know. I was just, but I think that didn't just jump into his head at that point. I think that was planned. So in the end, we had to decide, was the homeowner negligent when she opened the door to let the little girl out to play with the dog? And we did say that she was negligent, especially because the homeowner's position was that the other guy owned the dog, and if that's the case, then we felt that she should have either asked the little girl to go talk to the guy and ask him if it's okay to play with the dog, or she should have went and asked the owner if that's
Right.
okay for, or they should have went outside with the girl. One way or the other, she either negligent through inaction or negligent through allowing her out there. But little girl's okay. She's got scars on her neck, not really visible scars, but she definitely had scarring. So we ended up settling. We ended up believing that she was negligent, and all told, we went with $300,000. Definitely not the 3 million. It wasn't. We didn't believe that there was $3 million worth of emotional stress, but it was an interesting case, and I'm sure
How
when
much did you get?
with 300,000.
Oh, okay.
So we felt that there was negligence, and there is an amount to be arrived at, but the $3 million, even in jury selection, everybody was like $3 million. And I mean, if she had, I don't know, big huge scars, if she, in talking to her in her testimony in the courtroom, she did not seem like she was, you know unable to function, or antisocial. She's still very social. I honestly think that, like, she hadn't gone to a plastic surgeon until the attorney told her to go see a plastic surgeon.
Oh, wow.
So we were kind of like, it seems like she's moved past this somewhat, or mostly, and the attorneys were saying, you know, you need to go seek counsel, or go seek a plastic surgeon. No counseling. Neither the mother or the daughter have sought counseling. And again, it's not. I'm not saying they have to, but if there's those extreme levels of trauma and stress, then you would think that there would be counseling involved, or some form of assistance.
Yeah, I would think that before the surgeries, to correct any blemishes or anything that may have caused, you know, by the dog, because she's probably traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt too. I mean, and the mom too. It was crazy to hear that. The mom just ran out, tackled the dog, put a dog in a headlock. It was a pretty crazy story to listen to, especially the testimony of the little girl.
Right.
A dog.
Well,
You're a
sounded
dog.
very busy.
How did you handle your dog around strangers? So, and not like pure stranger. She had been around the dog 6 months earlier, but she was never
Well,
alone with the dog.
yeah, I knew Shiloh was a nipper. When kids were that they weren't around, or would tell them, be careful. He likes to, and I always felt, as long as I forewarned them, that they grab his ears or try to grab his tail. But I think it's the owner's responsibility. I mean, yeah, pits have such a bad reputation right now, that I've noticed that a lot of like TikTok and a lot of social media have tried to change that image of a pit bull. But outbreaks happen, and it's with a pit. You got to be very careful to make sure it's trained not to do those things, right? Obviously, the dog either felt threatened or didn't like the little girl. So, he did what he or she did what, naturally comes to a dog, is to attack. So the owner is full responsible for whatever happens to anybody who gets bit.
Yeah. One of the things that I took away from, because they had the dog experts on there, and they didn't agree on anything, obviously, because one's an expert for the plaintiff and one's an expert for
Right.
the defense. But one of the things they both agreed on, not necessarily the number, but there is a percentage of the pit bull population, 20 to 30. One was saying, I think, 25, and the other one was saying 30. But it was agreed upon that there is an amount of pit bulls that are just unpredictable. And they said that population, the dog could be the best dog, and if they're one of the 30%, they may just snap and you may not get any warning from it. Most of them, 70% of them, no. They're just, if they're good, they're good. You're gonna, they're predictable. But there is a percentage of the pit bull population that is what they call just unpredictable. And I think that combine that with, I mean, it's not I don't know, a teacup chihuahua that's unpredictable. It's a
Right.
big, powerful dog that's unpredictable. So when things happen and go wrong, they go way wrong. It's not like Shiloh nipping at somebody. It's a vicious attack.
Right.
And that's something I took away from. I took away from that of like, okay, I didn't really think of that it was that way. I was thinking that once a pit bull is a good, you have a history with a pit bull, but it just makes me a little bit more aware, I guess. I'm not going to say I don't want to be around pit bulls. I'm not going to say I will be, more conscious if there's kids around.
Yeah.
I'm going to, look at that situation a little closer. But that's one of the things I took away from it. But interesting process. Naki was right both times, so I'm sure when she gets back here next week, I'm gonna hear "I told you so." So I'm ready for it.
Of course you are.
Good to be done with that. All right, so we're gonna take a not a break, but we're gonna have some information that Naki and I had shared earlier, and when we come back, we are going to have with us. We've chased down Miss Tulifau. She is here with us, so we are going to bring her on after the break. We'll talk to the founder of Brown Girl Woke, Doris Tulifau. We're going to talk about Sidney Poitier passing this week, Keanu Reeves' huge donation to leukemia research, and there was the sentencing in the Ahmaud Arbery case in Georgia that took place this week. We will talk about that, so we'll be back to talk about those topics after with our guests Neo and Doris coming in. You're listening to the Faika broadcast. Don't go anywhere. The marketplace open enrollment period at healthcare.gov has started. This year, the new COVID relief law, the American Rescue Plan, will provide greatly improved financial assistance, which can significantly lower people's premiums.
More people than ever qualify for financial assistance at healthcare.gov. Consumers will be able to find more affordable health insurance plans that can help cover things like doctor visits, preventative health, and prescription drugs.
Under the new law, many uninsured Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders now have access to zero premium healthcare plans and are now eligible for premium savings for marketplace plans through healthcare.gov.
Don't miss your chance to start 2022 with the health coverage you need.
4 out of 5 consumers will be able to find plans for $10 a month or less after newly expanded financial assistance. You can get help filling out your application by calling the Marketplace call center at 1-800-318-2596 with assistance in 200 languages.
The Marketplace call center is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Additionally, you can also find a local assistant or agent broker in your area by visiting healthcare.gov and selecting the Find Local Help option.
Don't miss the January 15th deadline to select a plan or make changes to your healthcare coverage. Visit healthcare.gov today. Have our guest, and I believe that we have her in backstage area of our broadcast, and she's traveled over 4,000 miles just to be on the Faika show. Well, that might not be true, but Doris did travel over 4,800 miles away from her home in the country of Samoa, And joining us from Modesto today, welcome the founder of Brown Girl Woke and advocate entrepreneur extraordinaire, Doris Tulifau. Good morning, Doris.
Good morning, everybody.
Doris.
Good morning, Neil.
What's
So
up?
we were talking about we did our check-in, so we definitely want to let you jump in and talk about your week, and then we want to talk about every time Doris comes on, we're not sure what we're going to talk about because she's got so many different things going on. So after you let us know what you've done this week, talk to us about what's going on right now with Brown Girl Woke.
Right now I'm still on my health journey. I'm sure everybody's seen it. Getting better at eating right. Neo is like the best person to go to because he knows about everything. He knows calories for everything, even though he cooks amazing breads, carbs that I can't eat. But that's what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks. It's just been taking time out. We know this kind of work, especially doing work with our people in our community. We need self-care, and it's always good to come back home because I have my parents here. I also have my beautiful daughter. I did a Beyonce reveal of having a daughter. So it's been good to be back at home and just relaxing. I'm sorry. Just being back home and relaxing. We are tomorrow. It's Monday in Samoa, so this is our first day of work, and so I'm back to making sure our programs are set up. I think I talked about this last year. We're fully funded. We have 3 years of our salaries getting paid, our office getting paid, which is like huge for anyone doing community work because that's what we strive for. So we don't stress out and use our own money and our own savings and die. So it's been amazing that I could come home and be okay with everyone at the office in Samoa that they're still going to work. We're doing scholarships like we always do at the beginning of the year. We give out 4 scholarships a year. We're about to do fundraisers, so we'll post that up. You could go to browngirlwoke.co /donate if you want to donate to our scholarships. We give 4 students 1 year helping them in their tuition to give back to the community. It's something that I learned when I was in university. I was a part of AmeriCorps, and they gave me scholarships, and I would go into areas in United States to help give back. And I want to do the same thing for Samoa, as it's hard for the kids to volunteer. So that's what we're doing right now with Brown Girl Woke, is fundraising for our scholarships.
Wow. So hold on a second. This segues really good into this. Essence of Mana is offering free classes via Zoom. They're parenting classes. They're reaching out to our PI community, and it doesn't matter where you live. So you could live in Samoa. You got to be willing to commit to the course, which is 12 weeks. For more info or to register, they can hit up Lulu Masina at 415-243-6328 or El Masina at healthright360.org. They also host Talanoa Tuesday every week at 7 p.m., hosted by Nani Wilson and Lulu Masina. Check out all their episodes on the Essence of Mana's page. So this is like, you just dropped a bunch of stuff. Let's talk about Parenthood. And then we'll go into the weight loss. But we're talking about parenting classes. Talk about that. How is your life? What is the difference now, now that you're a parent? And just talk about that journey for a minute, because you got a lot of, you said a lot there in that like quick 3 minutes, like big weight loss.
I thought the internet dropped because coming back home, everything's so fast. I feel like I don't even know QR codes. So I thought it dropped. So I just kept talking really fast because I thought the internet went. So I was like, oh, I'm not going fast enough. But just to put a quick shout out to Essence of Mana. You guys give food for now it's virtual, but I'm sure they give out gift cards and things like that. That's why I loved the parenting classes when I wasn't a parent. I used to always sit at the SCDC ones and just eat the food. But you also get they do give you guys like a lot of help on being healthier too in parenting classes, because I think a lot of people like wonder what are parenting classes, but it's really good to understand that even with that you need self-care. With myself being a parent, my parents were taking care of my daughter, which is like a plus because my parents are in their 70s. So coming back home to my daughter and she's 7 months, she already has a routine. I think if I took my daughter to Samoa, I would have been a mess because I would have done it by myself. I would probably have spoiled her rotten, and she probably would have cried all the time. But coming back home, because my parents are older and they can't really carry her because she's a big girl. She doesn't even like being carried. She has her nap times, her lunch, her dinner. Like my parents yell at me. They're like, "Oh, you can't feed her at that time. Her feeding is at 12 and her nap time is at 10 and 2 and she sleeps at 9." I was like, "Okay." So it's kind of like I'm getting my own parenting, reparenting to my child, but definitely wouldn't be able to do this without my parents who, my parents have been there throughout all my projects. So this is probably the best project they've ever done for themselves because they don't even want to give back my child.
They want to spoil
those are,
Atlas.
Yeah.
Well, then that's one of the things because they're more of the parent, right? In the relationship with your daughter, they're not grandparents.
Yeah.
In that sense, because Naki and I've always talked about this. Like, I would send my kids, during the summer for a week with my mom, and they would come back and tell me things that they were doing and things they were eating, and things that I didn't get to do as a kid, and I was like, what the heck? And then we find out that people grandparent different than they parent. And sometimes that irritates the parents because they're like, oh, I didn't get like that kind of stuff. And I wasn't able to go do those things. But very interesting. And it also, it takes a village to raise a child. Very much at play here with, the extended with the family being a big piece in your daughter's bringing up.
It definitely gives me a perspective of like, my relationship with my mom and like seeing her relationship with, her granddaughter. Cause even with like, I told my mom, like, man, you guys give her everything compared to us. And, I had an emotional like breakdown a week ago on my social media talking about it, saying like, my mom told me, she was like, we grew up poor. We couldn't give you guys, all the things that we could give Atlas. You guys had to share clothes. Now that we can give everything to them, as grandparents, it's like, they're overjoyed that they could do it again. Especially my dad. My dad worked my whole life. So now he's like a new dad, and it gets on my mom's nerves because he wants to take her to emergency like every day. And my mom's like, see what happens when you didn't raise your own kids.
That's too cute.
You bring up an interesting point. It's so I don't know, fascinating to me that Doris, being from the Bay Area, Essence of Mana is a known program. SCDC is a known provider of support, and it warms my heart to see that there is a product of Essence of Mana, a product of SCDC, a product of the community programs, many of which you were a part of, Neo, and then see the next generation of Doris out there taking that and enhancing that out there in the Pacific, doing it and ending up and I always say Thailand because I talked to her one time in Thailand and I didn't know where she was. She was doing some fundraiser, getting containers filled with things to send, I think, to Samoa for the
measles.
The measles, and she was like, "No, I think we'll just do, Poe can help with that." And she goes, "Oh, hold on a second." And then I find out that she's talking to me from Thailand, so she's not even in Samoa in her home. She's in Thailand, organizing all these things, and it's just the I can do it kind of attitude that you've taken from a lot of the programs that we're familiar with here in the Bay Area, and you're out there doing it. That's inspiring.
No, it definitely, like, you learn from working with people and having good partnerships. Like, Neo is like a mentor to me. So like, I feel like he, I'm like, I kind of like put things like, Neo, I love you. Can you pick up all the, especially people that do this work, we all understand. Like, you have to have, I think one thing about me doing community work, you had to have good partnerships, relationships, and then the people that you have those partnerships and really trust you. So you could always count on them. I would not be able to do this, or organize, even I'm organizing from here to Samoa without having those relationships and without having people trust me. And that's a big thing in our community that we've lost for so long, is the trust, and that I want to rebuild with the youth. Because every time I talk to youth in our community, They don't trust things because they've seen their parents go through it in our different, like, layers of church or in our families. And then we had to rebuild it to show them that, man, we all work together. We all love each other. We'll all be there for each other, even if we're not family, but we are family through, community work.
Yeah, I remember you said, no,
So
Neo's
Doris,
in charge of the
you
San
see,
Francisco effort. I was like, does Neo know this?
No.
no, Neo never knows this. Neo never knows this. But do you see a big difference between the youth in Samoa and the youth here in America?
No, I
Their
don't see.
wants, their needs, their concerns.
No, I think they're all I think they all are the same. I feel like they're all the same. No matter, we always say, especially with our, any, you know, community like small, like Pacific Islander, or even being more specific, Samoan, no matter where the youth are in Samoa or in the States or wherever, you see the high rates of suicide, you see depression, you see mental health, you see the reason why parents are not listening, they don't have nowhere to speak, there's no safe spaces. It doesn't matter. Like we're still not finding we're still not listening to our kids, and it's always been something that we always talked about before. We're not giving them that space to speak up. So I don't see a difference from when I come speak here. I'm lucky that I get to come back to America and I speak to the youth at my church, and then I'm doing work in Samoa. I see the same things. The kids still don't get that avenue to speak up and to talk about things, especially things that can like talking about anxiety or depression and mental health, which is something big that's happening in Samoa that they're doing more stuff on.
So
Do you
you had
think
talked about a
the
fundraiser.
churches should play a big responsibility with that?
Yes, of course, because it's intergenerational. That's one thing that we always talk about. How can we make sure that the youth, the adults, the elders, we're all speaking in one place? If we're all meeting at church and if we all like respect, especially God, one God, then that should be the place that we need to speak more about what's happening in our communities. Even if, like, there's a huge thing about a lot of kids that or violence, a lot of people that do violence in Samoa, that they drop out of school because they have to go work, and all those things, they still go back to church, right? If you're not going to school, you're still going to go to church. If you're not gonna, if you're not working, you still go to church. So if we could find a place that's intergenerational that everyone goes to, it's church. So as much as we don't want to put too much stress, I've been to meetings where we had all the Faika in Samoa come to, and ask them, like, we need you guys to be more counselors, to talk about mental health, domestic violence. It's also a big burden on them, so we have to like use everybody in our church to like listen and understand, and bring in more programs in the church. And that's why I think, yeah, church is huge. I've always believed church was a huge part of talking to the community.
Carl, you had a question on fundraising, right?
Actually, we can get to that. I think that's a good point of, what role does the church play? And I know, Neo, you're involved with a local church to you as well. Do you think the role of the church is evolving? Like, do we see the way that the church interacts with our youth? Is that an evolving thing with the way that our youth is evolving? And I guess we'll talk to Doris because she's doing, you're working with the youth. Do you see the role that the church is having as evolving with the young people?
I see it in some churches, but not a lot. And especially when you think about, because I grew up in, a very traditional Efakasa Samoan church in California. Sometimes, that's the place that everyone gets to meet, all the elders. Like, every day you're American, but when you come back Sunday, you're going to see all your cousins and your aunties and uncles. And sometimes we forget about, what are the youth needs in church, because a lot of us don't speak Samoan, so we don't understand what's happening there. Then you just, you're almost putting in puppets and not making sure that they're spiritually fed. And you see kids and a lot of youth leaving the church because they don't understand. So there has to be something where we got to make sure that everyone understands that, we're not only going to church just because of religious, but also to see our own community and see what's happening. So I think that's like a big part of, what's happening with church. Do I see it evolving? Not yet, because not in America, just because that is where we get a lot of our fa Samoa, a lot of our culture is like almost put all in one time. My dad always says that. He's like, I know it feels draining to go to church, but remember, that's the day you're gonna get the most Samoan you'll ever get. It's all in that one day. We have to find a way where that we can put it every day, instead of feeling like when we go Sunday we got to do this and that and this and that. And it could be a lot for someone that's a youth. So just explaining the conversation, communication, it's huge for our youth now, because a lot of us are not doing the same discipline like before, but if we're not giving them discipline, at least speak to your kids and make sure that they understand. And that's one thing that my dad always made me understand with church, because I used to hate going. I'm not even gonna lie, it's like, I have to go to church. I had to do all the the chores and clean the dishes and do all these things. And my dad used to always say to me, like, man, well, how many days do you get to go back and get back to your community and learn someone and be with your people? And I think that's a lot of things that we don't teach our kids. We don't have these conversations. Why are we going to church? And it's not only because of church, it's also our community. And what do we take advantage of? And not putting it so much on the Faika and the Falitua, but everybody in there.
Yeah, I think
I'd like to piggyback on some of the things that Doris has talked about. So I've never went to church as well, though my grandfather is a Faife'au. I have a lot of Faife'aus in my family, and the reason why I didn't go to church was because of the LGBT issue, right? So travel up till now, I decided I needed to retire, but I was lost without my Samoan community, and the best thing to do, like Doris says, was go to church. So it took a lot for me as a gay man to walk into this church and say, hi, I want to volunteer and I want to help and I want to be a part of it. There was questions that were whispered, like, oh my God, he's going to start bringing in utopia to the church, and so I had a conversation with the current Faika'au and the Falatua, and I said, listen, I've been to many churches where the LGBT thing came up, and the first thing they say is, I'm going to burn in hell, and then I'm a sin. And I've gotten up and walked out from every church, from Ifakasa to Pentecostal to Baptist to Catholic, you name it, I've gotten up and I've walked out. Why? Because it doesn't happen, right? Why would I want to be in a place where they don't me? The Falitu and the Faika'au sat there and they looked at me and they said, this is God's church. God loves everybody. We would never say that. That sold me. I was in for the backlash. I was in. And you're right. Our Sam need to be educated a plethora of things. We are now the community centers, the churches. And if our Faife'au or Falituas take the responsibility to talk about diabetes, to talk about heart failure, to these centers, right? These centers are getting funded big money. That's great. It's helping our community. But every Sunday, you have an audience of Samoan people who are not educated to what's going on. So I think our mindset has to rethink the way we approach church and the way church approaches us, and how we can lightly explain to them what the needs are of our youth. Like Doris said, people are killing themselves. Youths are killing. Our diets are horrendous. But church holds that very, very strong hold on a lot of our family. And it takes people like Doris, myself, and other individuals who are non-church goers at the time to infiltrate church and to have an open discussion with our Faife'aus and Falituas of what's happening in the real world. And that's why I love this pastor and his wife, is because they are open to that. So after we take our problems within the church, and we will become a community center where we can feed people. We can have workout sessions every week, because that's what the church should be doing.
Speaking of kids, we need to protect our kids the best way possible with COVID vaccines, which are tailored for children 5 to 11. Talk to a health worker if you have questions. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. We can do this. I think the key piece of that is talk to a health worker if you have questions. You don't need to go to the comment section on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok to get your information. You can talk to a health worker. In the discussion about the church, it seems like, to me, so in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that was a big piece of moving the culture and keeping the culture in with the kids was the church. The church played that role. Both of your points, that's where you would go for, a lot of the culture things besides just church. And the less of the kids that go to church, the more they're losing out on in the culture. And that's why I would ask, I had posed the question, do we think that the churches are evolving so that it continues to attract the youth? Because that's really going to be a lot of the connection for a lot of the kids is going to be, through the church. So I was just curious where you felt that fell. A couple things, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time on it, but do you have a favorite Sidney Poitier movie? Sidney Poitier passed away this
Doris
week.
is too young to know who Sidney Poitier is.
I know who he is. He's a very good looking man.
Favorite Sidney Poitier movie? Probably Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
Classic, right? And they've redone that from the opposite way, right? That's been redone from the races were reversed in I think the movie was in the 2000s. They had reversed the races.
Yeah, but I mean, just to know he's been around that long, right, and make films that long, for a generation that is now Betty White's generation. I mean, like, we're all old and getting older, and I think a lot of young people need to be reminded of these films that came out back in the day. The first time I ever saw was in the 60s, and I was pretty young. So, how about you? Any movie, you or Doris?
Mine would be In the Heat of the Night. I think he was a police officer, police chief. He was in police in the movie, and he's falsely arrested, and not only does he clear himself, he finds out who murdered the person. But it was in the 60s. It was in 1967. And when you put that into context of what was going on in 1967, and like you see these a lot now, right? It's okay to show those kind of things and portray those kind of stories now. But in the 60s, when I look at that and I see what he's doing and how forward and how progressive he is in those playing those roles, it's really admirable, because I'm sure it was tough just to get the movie approved and to get it all the way into production and then seeing it on the screen. I can appreciate that more than when I first saw it. As a kid, I saw it and I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a good story. But now that I kind of understand things better, I realize what he must have went through to make that film. How about you, Miss Tulifau? Is there a favorite memory of Sidney Poitier?
Just gonna be honest, but I know who he is. That's it.
That's okay. That's okay.
He's a beautiful, beautiful man.
Yeah. Well, there's many people that, love Betty White and weren't, couldn't name movie, probably saw movies with Betty White and didn't know exactly
Golden
who she
Girls.
was. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a big Betty White fan.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I started doing that. I started looking at like actors and actresses that are in their 60s or 70s and thinking, I'm probably going to be around when they pass. Like, it's weird to see these people. Go ahead, Neil.
No, I was just thinking, I did a little tribute thing, to Betty White. My brother like hits me up. Oh, so you knew her? With his sarcastic ass. I'm like, yeah, we hung out, bro. We hung out. But they're of my. That's why I say of my generation. I'm like, damn, these people are dying. But no, they left us. They left us a lot of good memories. Like I
It's
wasn't
so
really a
funny.
Golden Girls fan, believe it or not, but it is a funny show. I know, right? I wasn't, but it's okay.
I feel like actors from those times, they were like so high level compared to now. Now actors are from TikTok, and I'm just like, I'm with my little cousins, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, he's popular on TikTok. He's on this movie," and I'm like, "This is where we're getting our actors from." Okay,
Mhm.
compared to back in the day where they went to schools and they went to, what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's really this
It's so
generation is
true.
it's so different. You can make it by making videos of anything and any content. That's why it's scary um for this next generation on making sure what are they learning, and going back to the church and going back to our community. That's where they're going to learn the most is from our own communities.
Yeah, and I think that that's the one of the things with that is that information travels so fast, right? So you can learn whatever you want, but disinformation travels just as fast. So you could, what are you learning? Are you learning the right things, and are they true?
And who are you
That's
learning it from?
right, right. Because access is everything, and you can get you. We all carry the phone, and we have
Yes.
access to the world with that phone, but all parts of it, the good parts and the bad parts. One of the good parts that I saw was that Keanu Reeves was donating, 70% of his Matrix salary to leukemia research, and somebody says they're donating 70% of their salary. Usually that's a big deal, but it's how big is it? But I think it was $10 million. No, $31.5 million is what he donated to
Well,
leukemia
I
research.
had the name first, so I think you should need some money too
Where's my money?
then.
I guess his
I'm
younger
just saying.
sister had been battling the disease for 8 years at the time he made the donation. She was donated. She was diagnosed with blood cancer in '91, and then spent a decade in and out of treatment before finally entering remission in 2001. And blood cancer is always going to hold a special place in my heart because that's what our sister Naki was
Yeah.
diagnosed with in 2018, I think. So that's you hear a lot from Hollywood about wanting to get involved and wanting to do those things, but when an individual donates $31.5 million, um, that makes me stand up and notice. And I've read a lot of comments about he gets a tax break for that, and he does this and he does that. It's $31 million. So if he gets a $31 million tax break because he donated that to cancer research, then it's a win-win situation. It's not something that takes away from it for me. Well, I kind of wanted to get both of your take on that. Do you see things like that, like an actor, or I don't know, Bill Gates donates $1 billion and those kind of things? Do you look at that as there's probably an ulterior motive, or do you look at that? How do you see that? Let's start with Doris.
She's still here.
I don't know. We can start with Neil and we'll go to Doris. How do you see that when you see like a celebrity, a public figure donate a large amount of money?
It's funny that you would say that. I always look at it as in the content. Is it for my community? Like,
Hmm.
are a lot of Pacific Islanders going to benefit from this? Or is this a big tax write-off for you? I mean, you don't really know the sincerity, right, of where it's coming from. But then I get it too. They can't be like us where we can donate our time and our sweat and our equity in helping to do that, to show how we are trying to help out in a cause. And money is a big thing. So if you got that kind of money coming from a right place, then yeah, I'm all down for it. But I always do question PI community going to get, or do we get any of that?
Right. Yeah, and that's natural, right? Like that's great. Does that help us? And so hopefully, leukemia research does benefit us. One of my nephews and Naki's nephews passed away from leukemia a few years
Mm.
ago. So hopefully the research would benefit us. Yeah, you're right. I do the same thing. Like that's great. How's it going to benefit us? But um, yeah,
And of course, we can't be silly enough not to think that, big money like that, it is going to be taxed, right? And if you can catch a break too, then there's nothing wrong with catching a break while you're helping, other individuals, hold on to their lives or help the research that's going to go behind that money. But nowadays, everything is so transparent and not transparent, right? Like the direction, right? We're all the taxes are coming through. Sooner or later, things will come out. That's the reason why you donated all that money, or you just never know. Nowadays, everything has to be questioned. Where your heart is coming from, and like so far, I haven't heard a bad thing about Betty White. So obviously, she lived her her life to the righteous as she could, right? But as soon as some other individuals pass away, you hear a whole bunch of stuff about them, about their character and where their heart was. And if you're going to give money, give it with the best intention, because it will come back to you. Like, what do you think of Zuckerberg buying up all this land in Hawaii?
yeah. I mean, I try to look at that. I try to find something that says that's not a bad thing, and it's hard to.
Right.
I mean, I admittedly,
It's very hard.
yeah. Did Miss Tulifau make it back? I do not see her yet.
Yeah.
So,
I want to know there were some questions like, what is she doing next? And
yeah, yeah.
how
We're
long
going to
is she-
take a quick break in here from healthcare.gov one more time, and then when we come back, hopefully we have her on and we can talk about what she has going on next. So I'm going to turn it over to our producer and let her run with that. Maybe we'll do that in a little bit. Let's see. I can't tell if Doris is back or not. So we had the
coming on.
Go ahead.
She's coming on. I see it loading.
Okay. What do you have this week? What do you got coming up this week?
For me?
Yep.
Other than Zoom Hot Siva, that'll be on Wednesday. The link and stuff, I'll have it up this week. We're trying to figure out, they don't want to discontinue Hot Siva, but with this new variant that's out there, we were at a brick and mortar place at 1099 Faces, where everybody had to show their vaccine card and you have to be masked. But there's just a really big concern that we should just do it now from my home. Everybody else can just Zoom in on Wednesdays. So that's basically it. I have a baking order that I have to fulfill of 100.
What you making? What you making?
Banana bread and cupcakes. So that'll be for 60 families that I'll be baking for. And it's good to have those skills because you can get a paycheck from it. But yeah, so I'll be doing that and trying to figure out, like, I want to get Doris back on. Like, when can I come to Samoa? When can they sneak me in? I'm ready to leave the States and start my new adventure.
You want to go to see Doris first, or you want to go back to America Samoa? Which one?
I don't know. I think America Samoa is going to be harder. Right now, they're very adamant on not. My cousin, who passed away two months ago, her daughter was just able to get to Samoa to see, her mom. And that was 2 months ago. She passed away. So the likelihood, I mean, I don't know how Doris does it. She gets out, gets in, gets out, gets in. She must have some pull. There she is.
There she is.
Can you hear us, Doris? Oh. Oh.
Well, we definitely need to hear from her when she comes back.
Yeah, but that's. What about you? What do you have coming up this week? What does Faika have going on for us this week?
Let's see. So we're doing some studio upgrades. We're doing some production upgrades. We got some equipment coming in and really trying to level up the standard of production. And that's a big piece of where we're at right now. And then that's the thing with Naki and I. We got 9 to 5s, so we got to hold down the piece of the day and the week that pay the bills and gives us benefits and health insurance and all those things. And then after those things go down, then we're embedded in PBD. But I think the big thing for us is just trying to grow. Trying to get a better show out there for the people, and
which you guys are. You guys are doing an amazing job.
It's been a fun ride all the way from 7th Street between Mission and Market. Naki and I used to count, and you used to count too, the number of syringes on the ground on the way in. And from that to, I don't know, doing the show from our own rooms right now. That's a different thing. FCC Free Radio is not there any longer. It's closed up shop.
That's so sad. So he completely closed up. He's no longer around.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. We are going to do a quick, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll talk about what we have going on in the future. Hopefully, Doris joins us, comes back, but we will be right back. You're listening to the Faika podcast with myself and our guest host, Veavea. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
To miss your chance to start off 2022 with the healthcare coverage you need. Access to health coverage is critical to ensure that our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander communities can take care of their health and protect themselves and their families from high medical costs.
Thanks to the new law, coverage is more affordable this year, and more people than ever qualify for expanded financial assistance, which can help lower their monthly premiums. Under the American Rescue Plan, many uninsured Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders now have access to a plan for $0 and now have access to low premium plans.
Uninsured Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders who do not receive coverage through their jobs or who may have lost health care coverage during the pandemic are now eligible for health coverage on healthcare.gov. In fact, 4 in 5 consumers are able to find health coverage for $10 or less a month.
Open enrollment is happening now at healthcare.gov, but you need to enroll by Saturday, January 15th to have coverage starting February 1st. You can get help filling out your application by calling the Marketplace call center at 1-800-318-2596 with assistance in 200 languages.
The Marketplace call center is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Additionally, you can also find a local assister or agent broker in your area by visiting healthcare.gov.
Don't miss the January 15th deadline to select a plan or make changes to your healthcare coverage. Visit healthcare.gov today. I think that was one of the the PSAs that we really were looking at going, this is really good information. These are things that our community needs to know, and that there's options out there for small amounts. These aren't, $300 or $500 a month kind of programs. Those are things that we need to know are out there. So,
as a matter of fact, I contacted them because.
Did you?
Yeah. I'm going to, being retirement and trying to get medical, it's very expensive, and so hopefully going through this, the premiums won't be as expensive, because you're when you're on a fixed income, you're pinching pennies, let me tell you. And now I get it. But so it's it's easy form to fill out. They'll contact you and you'll be working with somebody and figuring out what you can afford. So it's
no doubt. Good to have that. Good to have that available, and good to get people to know it's available. I think there's a lot of times there are benefits or programs or assistance out there, support out there that our people don't know about. So that was one of the ones where we were really happy to get out there. We do have Koviki Talk tomorrow, so this is our first one, I think, of 2022. We're going to have Dr. Malik Fuimaono, Dr. Kavehiao, and Dr. Sheldon Ricklon on to talk about the Omicron variant. There's a lot of questions out there about the efficacy of the vaccine in terms of Omicron. The infectious, the level, it's more infectious. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean with the boosters? All those kind of things. And those are questions that not only need to be answered by the CDC and, the National Institute of Health and those kind of things, they need to be answered by people that look like us so they can speak to our community and they can get the information from doctors that have that information and can share it. So tomorrow we'll have Dr. Fuimaono, Dr. Kavehiao, and Dr. Sheldon Ricklon on at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. And that is going to be brought to you by Naopo and Happy, the Happy Doctor Association, and Pacifica by Design. So look for us tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is it for today. Neil, any closing thoughts before we send people on to enjoy their Sunday?
Closing thought. No, be nice to each other, be kind. And there are resources out there. You just got to find them at the right place.
Awesome. Always appreciate having you on.
And
when we are able to hug each other and share space with each other, we're going to have you in the studio and we can do one live like the old days. And
yes.
Thank you, brother, for being on.
Thank you for the invite. Love you guys.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Faika podcast. Come back and Faika with us next week. Love y'all.
The type that knows to keep me grounded. The type to pull me aside and look me in the eyes. And ask my heart if it's alright.